Hi everyone, I'd like to do a shout out to our sponsor, Baco Diagnostics. Early detection is the single most important factor in improving patient outcomes. The Baco Diagnostics team recognizes how impactful a podiatric physician can be and remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing conditions of the lower extremity. Thanks to the unwavering support of their clients, Baco Diagnostics has been able to give back to the podiatric community for 16 years by providing podiatric educational resources and advocating for the position. Baco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. If you have not yet had the opportunity to utilize Baco Diagnostics services, get started today by sending an email to corporatelations@bacodiagnostics.com. The first 50 podiatry offices who request a starter kit will receive a Dean's Chat. Hello everyone, welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I am the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanna Ritchie. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Whenever we get a chance to interview one of our students, it makes my day.
Oh, man, and I'm really excited, too, because I've gotten to know Marc over the last year and a half a year and a half. Wow, that's crazy. So I'm really excited, too, because I didn't get to be part of his first co-interview with you. He's a repeat on Dean's Chat.
He is. Not only is Marc Rademaker a repeat, he was a co-host when we interviewed one of the contestants on Survivor, Dr. Joshua Wild. I think, let me make sure, episode 35, Marc. It was a long time ago.
It was. We've come a long way.
You've come a long way. You're almost getting ready to graduate from the Arizona College.
It's crazy. Can't believe it.
Well, welcome back to Dean's Chat.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's fun to be back.
Thanks for making time for us. Joe.
Yeah, well, Marc, we're really excited to have you back. There's a bunch of fun things we're excited to talk with you about today. But since you didn't get a full official formal intro, we're going to do that today. So Marc graduated from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse with his bachelor's degree in biology, and then came to the Midwestern University Glendale campus in Arizona for the College of Podiatric Medicine. And he's currently in his fourth year, about 3 months away from graduating. So he's almost there.
So
Marc, can you tell us a little bit about what got you interested in podiatry? How did you get here?
Sure. I mean, as cliche as it sounds, I always wanted to do healthcare. And it was just, I never really found much interest in anything else, to be honest. And so one summer in college, I was working at a hospital and I had the opportunity to shadow in a bunch of different specialties and areas. And I thought I better take advantage of everything. And podiatry was kind of low on my list, to be honest, before I discovered it, because I was like, oh, I guess I'll see what they do, but I'll never do it type of attitude, which is hilarious because I ended up loving the profession. I just loved how there was more of a sense of humility that I found with the patient-doctor relationship. I feel like, the part of the body that we work with, the foot and ankle, it's the lowest part of the body. People forget about it a lot when they're walking around and then something hurts and they want to fix right away. And it's often neglected and even stigmatized. And so I think being able to provide people with the ability to walk comfortably again was something that really appealed to me. And I'm a runner, and all of the sports medicine side of it is really intriguing as well. And then I just found so much more variety than I ever could have imagined. So I'm so happy with my decision.
I love that. Can we get a little more granular? Was it a shadowing experience? What was it where you were like, hey, this was cooler than I expected?
Yeah, it was a shadowing experience. So I got to go a few different days. I got to see the OR and clinic. And that was something that appealed to me as well, was being able to have both the surgical and clinical aspects present. You're following patients all the way through their care. And the schedule of the doctor that I was following, he had a patient with a diabetic ulcer, and then he had a kid with a flat foot, and then he had a 25-year-old runner with an injury, and it was just so much variety. And I had no idea that you could do so much with just a small part of the body like that. So right away, I was hooked.
Any shout outs, Marc?
That was Dr. Brad Abicht. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
He's fantastic.
Oh man, what an amazing person as your first shadow.
Yeah.
Now, he is joining Jeff Dykes on Pod Patrol for their monthly journal club that they're doing on Thursday nights, and they're advertising it all over to all the schools. So little shout out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the gatekeepers.
The
Check it
gatekeepers.
out.
Yes, it is. Well done.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, he's great.
Well, this will be a shout out, and this is a good reason for us to reach out to him to get him on the show too.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Be like, Marc had recommended you. Maybe that would actually, he's a wonderful guy. I bet he would be interested.
Absolutely.
I think so.
So
Go ahead, Joe.
curious, your experiences as a student when you came to campus, what were some of the things that you were maybe surprised by as a student, or things that maybe you wish you would have known after you got to campus?
That's a great question. I think the initial shock was moving from Wisconsin to Arizona in the middle of July. That was
a rough
pretty
month.
crazy. No, I came down with my parents and it was 96 degrees at 9 p.m. when we were moving into my apartment, and it was dark, but you could just feel the heat radiating off the pavement. And we had to take several breaks going up and down the stairs, sweating profusely. And in Wisconsin in the winter, you go outside and bundle up, and then you come inside and take all the layers off because the heat is so high. But in Arizona in the summer, you go inside and you bundle up with all these layers because the AC is blasting, and then you walk outside and 110 feels amazing for about 5 minutes, and then you have to take everything off. So that was definitely an adjustment right away. But I think in terms of the academics, it was like the analogy that I've heard over and over again is drinking out of a fire hose. And I totally concur with that. I mean, it was my entire biology degree regurgitated at me in like a month and a half, and then we still had way more to learn. So yeah, it was an adjustment, but having the classmates that I did was so beneficial. I think, especially as we've grown throughout all of our didactic and extern experiences and everything, we have a really close-knit group, so I'm really lucky.
That's awesome.
Marc, it was not even 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, that we did the podcast together with Dr. Wilder. And tell us a little bit about that transition from the didactics, taking boards part 1, you have a couple more months of classes, and then you get into clinicals. Can you tell us about that growth process and maybe break it down a little bit, like the 3rd year into the 4th year, then halfway through the 4th year? Because I know it's immense, but I would love to hear it in your words.
Sure, yeah, it is immense. I mean, we basically start 3rd year with this period of studying for our boards part 1. And I think the interview that we did was right around that study break. And that interview was kind of a study break for me for board studying, which was nice. So we take boards, and then, like you said, we have a few more classes, and we're kind of transitioning into having more meetings about what it's going to be like in our clinical experiences. And what was really valuable was there were past students who would come in and talk to us about what they learned and the advice they got. And we were able to kind of get a little bit of an inside view, but you don't really know until you go out still. And so I think the interesting transition was going from feeling like you're studying all day to learn all of this information in the didactics and, sitting in the library all the time studying, to going out in the clinic and, your whole day is in the clinic. And in some ways you have more free time, in some ways you have less free time. But I think that all of my classmates would agree that transition, it's so much more fun to be doing the practical stuff and being out in the clinic and working with all these mentors that we got to establish relationships with throughout our 3rd year, where we rotate in basically a lot of private practice hospital settings around Phoenix and Tucson. And then throughout that process, you're kind of gearing up to go out and travel the country for 9 months for your externships. And so going from 3rd year to 4th year, the responsibility and to know what you're doing kind of elevates a little bit, but at the same time, you're still a student, and it's important to recognize that you're not going to know everything, and that's okay. And you can still be curious in that setting. And I think that's what I learned pretty early on, is that people really appreciate that curiosity and the desire to learn and see how they do things. And yeah, I could speak on the travel throughout 4th year forever, because it was such a fun experience. And in hindsight, I'm really glad I did it, but I'm also really happy to be at this point.
Where all did you go, Marc?
Yeah, great question. So I started out in Seattle. I went to Swedish, and then I went to Legacy in Portland. I did North Colorado in Greeley, and then I went over to Wake Forest in North Carolina. I did Ascension St. Vincent in Indianapolis. And then I went up to Wisconsin to do Gunderson. And then I went over to Regions in St. Paul, Minnesota. I did Sanford Health in Fargo, North Dakota. And then I finished up at Creighton in Phoenix.
Oh my gosh, that is a grand tour.
It was a grand tour. Yeah.
And Joe, your thoughts on the ability to travel the country your fourth year and see what our great profession has to offer?
It's such a neat, and Mark, you totally nailed it when you said it was just such an amazing experience. And it's like the most fun that you also don't want to have again, because logistically it's just exhausting, right? Like it's being on an interview basically for 4 weeks straight, but it's also, when do you get to go and move to a city for a whole month, which is long enough to get a pulse of, hey, could I live here? Do I like it here? What's the weather like? What's the scene like? What are the hospitals like? What are my co-residents possibly going to be like? But also short enough that if it's kind of like, this isn't really for me, it's okay. You can make it through a month, right? Like if I learned anything, it's I can do anything for 4 weeks straight. Like I can do it. But yeah, I mean, no other jobs really let you move around for 1 month at a time like this and travel the world or the country. And so what I would love to get your take on, Mark, because we haven't really gotten really granular on some of that for students. I mean, a couple people have talked a little bit about it, but in your third year, when you were planning this, how did you go about figuring out those logistical details? Because you had a pretty all over map.
I did.
So
yeah.
Can you walk us through that a little?
Sure. I mean, I felt like there were places that I was interested in, but I also didn't want to limit myself, was kind of my strategy with picking where to go. And, during the beginning of your third year, you apply to all of these externships through a centralized portal with all of the other students from all the other schools. And I put 3 or 4 different places in every month just because I wanted to give myself options and try to map it out in a logical way and everything. And so part of my motivation was being from Wisconsin. I knew I wanted some programs that were in the Midwest. And then I knew I had family in the Seattle area, and Swedish is a great program. And then let's explore the Pacific Northwest a little bit more. Let's go explore Colorado. I have some friends there. I have some friends in North Carolina, and it's a great program. Like that was kind of my motivation for going to a lot of the places that I did. And I have no regrets about being able to have 9 months where I was near home for part of it, and I was traveling and getting to experience these new places for part of it. And I felt like that was a great balance for me personally. I got to do a lot of the big travel up front and get a lot of that long distance driving out of the way. Greeley to Winston-Salem was 23 hours of driving. And, many of my classmates can attest that they had similar travel experiences where they were going basically halfway across the country every 4 weeks. And it's so surreal. The whole fourth year experience, it's just, I think it really expanded my worldview in a lot of ways because I had only ever lived in Wisconsin and Phoenix. And so I had established myself in 2 places, but you kind of lose sight of, especially when you're a student, outside of your bubble in a way. And so being able to go to these other places and see, oh, this is how a million people live their everyday life in this environment. It was so intriguing to me. So it was really fun.
So can I ask a piggyback question? Sorry, Jeff, I don't mean to monopolize all the questions, but so when you applied through the centralized application system, there were 3 options, if I remember correctly. Did you purposely make sure each month those same 3 were in the same region of the country so that you already knew kind of how you would, or how did you figure out, like,
roughly?
Okay.
I kind of tried to give myself 2 options. Like I can either go clockwise or counterclockwise. And
Okay.
that was kind of a decision I reached with some of my friends in the class who had similar ideas. And I think part of it was we didn't know who was going to take us in the first round and second round. And you want to have options, but you want to have priorities as well. So it's a little bit of a difficult decision, but at the same time, hearing a lot of the experiences of my classmates, I think there are so many good programs and there are so many places where I would have had a really great experience for a month. And in some ways, I wish I could have had more than 9, but I'm okay with having only done 9. But I think I would have been happy at many other places, getting to know those people and rotating at those hospitals as well. So
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. You know, when you mentioned the 23-hour road trip, in some ways it's like a little capsule, right? The beginning, the middle, and you're in this little bubble on your road trip. What was that like?
Well, yeah, and I was really lucky because my mom offered to drive with me from Portland to Greeley, and then my dad offered to drive with me from Greeley to Winston-Salem, and so I got to have those road trip experiences with both of them, and it just lends itself to you're stuck in a car with someone for that long, just being able to, you know, enter into better conversation, and you have such unique experiences, you know, like we saw this beautiful sunset in Nebraska over these cornfields at the end of July. And we got to go to New River Gorge National Park in West Virginia on the way to North Carolina. And I mean, I feel like those are memories that I'm going to be sharing with my parents forever now. So I feel lucky to have done that.
Oh my gosh, that's fabulous.
You know, it's also really fun is the music that you listen to on these. It's so like you will forever have moments that it will take you right back to that sunset in Nebraska and be like, oh man, like, do you remember that? And your mom will have that same moment. One of the things that actually looking back now at this phase of my life, I'm so grateful. I've always been a music person, but weirdly, I kind of categorized all of my externships and then every year of residency by like soundtracks, right? Because I would actually, it wasn't just me. My husband would put together different, like, oh, I found this cool new band, and he put together CDs on like, here, listen to this in the car while you drive, because there's a lot of driving, right? But now, like, I'll hear certain band, like we just went and heard a band that now to this day, that was my second year of residency, like that was my playlist. And so it's so fun to have that experience. And then you couple in the human part, like the people that are going with you, the experiential part of either the city or the scenery or all of those moments. I mean, that's spectacular. If nothing else, just taking all that in. And so I'm so glad that that was your experience.
Yeah, and I'm so happy you said that, because my dad and I on that road trip, we were eating dinner at this barbecue place, and this song comes on, and he's like, I haven't heard this song since I drove up the California coast in 1983. And I was, that's crazy. And so it brought him right back to that moment, like you said.
Yep.
I just love that. And you're bringing me back down memory lane, like Hootie and the Blowfish and things like that. That's going back to the 90s now. So it's all good.
Bruce Hornsby.
Bruce Hornsby, yeah, in the range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my day. You know, it's back in my time. All right,
That's awesome.
sounds good, Mark. So what lasting impression do you have coming back to Phoenix? You get a month off in January. You've got residency interviews coming up. You have boards coming up. How'd you prioritize things? Did you kind of have a feel with where you were going or your interview processes? What was that like in January?
Yeah, January, again, surreal is the word of the day, I think, with the entire 4th year experience. I think it's interesting because I did have an idea in my head of what I was looking for, and there were certain programs that felt like they fit that more than others heading into interviews. But also, you know, you want to leave all your options open, and you want to continue to maintain the good relationships that you built with everybody. And I honestly felt like on a human level, there were so many people that I connected with this year, and I wanted to ensure that I could present myself well to those people because I respected all of them. And I would say that it was helpful for us in particular because our boards were on, I think, Tuesday, and then we started interviews on that Thursday, Friday. And so we could study for both of them at the same time. That was beneficial to, you know, 2 birds, 1 stone kind of thing. I let myself enjoy the holidays for a little bit with my family, but also knowing that I had to take a step back. And it was helpful, like, again, to have my classmates. We would FaceTime and quiz each other and go through rapid fire and case studies and everything leading up to interviews. And that was really helpful. And yeah, if you guys want to hear more about the interview process and everything too, I can talk about that because that was again surreal. So
I would love to hear more, Joe. We have time for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go for it, Mark.
yeah, so we went to Chicago for that's where my Wisconsin accent comes out is when I say Chicago. Um, for we do a centralized residency interview process or CRIP, and so all of the programs with their directors and other representatives from the program, they all come to the embassy suites right outside O'Hare Airport. All of the candidates come, and it's a 6-day process. And you basically walk into the embassy suites, and there's this rotunda above you, and you're kind of in this staging area on the first floor where there's little pods of people, and everyone's got this nervous energy while they're trying to choke down some food before their first interview and just hanging out with each other and motivating one another. And then you see all these hotel rooms up above you with chairs outside of them, and there are people sitting in the chairs waiting for their interview. And again, just so surreal. And one by one, classmates would be like, "Oh, I gotta go get ready for my interview," and they would leave, and we'd all be like, "Good luck," and then they'd come back 20 minutes later, be like, "How did it go? Was it great?" And um, I think if I would have had to do that process without that support system, it would have been much more intimidating, but it felt like a big family reunion at the same time that this was all happening because all of us are swapping stories from externships and doing last minute reviewing with one another. And then you do all of your interviews and you have socials at night, and many programs will book a room at the hotel, or they'll go to a local restaurant or brewery or something, and they'll bring all their candidates, and they want to continue to get to talk to the candidates. And it's a great opportunity to not only see all those people again, but to hang out with your classmates and see the people you rotated with again. And just seeing not only all of my friends from my class, but all the people I rotated with across 9 months, and all of the attendings and residents all in the same place at the same time. It was just mega worlds collide type of experience. And I will say, overall, very, very positive experience with all that nervous energy. You get your first interview out of the way, and you're a little more at ease. There's nothing more to say. That was just crazy.
What was it like with your classmates? Did they all have similar experience when you were sharing war stories of the 9 months and interviews?
No.
I mean, was that kind of the general vibe for the class in general?
I would say so. Yeah, I think we all had a pretty good attitude about recognizing that this was 9 months where we're kind of living a nomadic lifestyle, and it's 9 months, but we can do it because it's subdivided into these months. Like Dr. Ritchie was saying, I can do anything for a month. And we all had similar stories, yes. And it was fun to hear how things evolve at programs across different months, because I went somewhere in March that one of my classmates went in December, and things can be wildly different because residents change, and just the time of year and the types of cases that they're seeing and the things you're doing outside of the hospital setting. Like when I was in Seattle in March, I was able to do a lot of hiking around the area because it was so beautiful out on the weekends when I wasn't working. And then someone in December might have had a snowstorm that they had to deal with. So it was just really interesting to hear all of those opinions. Yeah.
That's fabulous. Joe, before we move on to Marc representing Midwestern University in a big event, I was wondering if you'd mind, and do a quick shout out to our sponsor, Bacco Diagnostics.
Absolutely.
We all know that early detection is the most important determination in improving patient outcomes. Bacco Diagnostics remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing lower extremity pathologies. Bacco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. Marc, we'd love to give shout outs to Bacco. They've supported our profession at every level: students, residents, practitioners, residency programs, you name it. So you remember
they're fantastic. I remember they came in for a lab when I was in my 3rd year. Yeah.
Dr. Shear flew it in the middle of like 110-degree summer.
It was pretty hot.
It was, but that's always, it's interesting. Students always remember those types of experiences. And so hats off to Bacco.
Mm-hmm.
And they continue to provide lots of different CME opportunities at every level of training, which is, again, wonderful.
Really is. Joe, do you want to kick off the next segment here?
Yeah. So, Mark, you also have a recent experience where you got to be part of the college tour showcased on Amazon Prime. Can you talk a little bit about how did you find out about this opportunity? I watched it. It was outstanding. But can you talk a little bit about how you found it and what that was like to be a TV star, movie star?
It was such a fun experience. I mean, initially we got an email from Mike Hernandez, who works for Midwestern, and basically saying the college tour is coming. We want students who are interested in representing our school. And they had a list of categories that they were interested in discussing on the show. And one of those that immediately jumped out to me was the campus location and the surrounding area. And I thought, I can talk about why I love the area around our campus forever, because I had the opportunity to go up to Sedona for weekend trips with my friends and, ski at the Snowball in Flagstaff. I hiked the Grand Canyon. I just feel like really lucky that I had a lot of people around me who wanted to take advantage of so many cool parts of Arizona. And so I was asked to, everyone who was applied was asked to submit a 2-minute audition tape. And I I have a little bit of experience with that because I have tried out for Survivor. We discussed that a little bit with Dr. Wilder when he was on the podcast. And so basically I just talked at my phone for 2 minutes about why I love the area and the great things that there are to do. I didn't hear back for a few weeks, and I thought, oh, they probably didn't pick me. They're probably moving forward with other people, whatever. But then I got an email, and they wanted me to be part of the cast and to film with them. And so it was perfect timing, actually, because I had my first externship in March, and my schedule worked out that I came back to Phoenix for my last third-year rotation in April, and that was when they were filming. And so if I would have gone out for externships a different month, it wouldn't have worked out. So it was really fun that it did. And so they said they wanted to talk about what I talked about in my audition tape. They wanted to feature me in the segment about the surrounding area. And I talked a lot about how frequently I would go up to Thunderbird, which is a mountain just like 10-minute drive from campus. I would be studying in the library, and it would be near sunset, and I would decide to go hike up the mountain a lot in my first and second year when I was studying. And so we actually filmed on Thunderbird, which was really cool. They kind of took us to the base, and they brought out the reflector because it was a sunny day, and they had me prepare a script where it was a lot of different segments that they were going to splice together to create this final product. And they brought a drone out, and they asked me to bring a couple of friends and do the hike with me. So shout out to Luke and Julia and Amber. That was a really fun day. And we hiked up Thunderbird, and they got some drone shots, and you could see Midwestern from the mountain. So I think that was a lot of their appeal with doing that shot too. So we got to do that segment. And then I talked about playing sand volleyball a lot with my friends in my class. And so a lot of them were already out on their externships. And so they couldn't be a part of the show with me. And so I was fortunate that Megan, who is a student who's currently a second year, she was also featured on the college tour, and she enlisted a lot of the friends in her class, and we all played sand volleyball, and they filmed us doing that. We did a little bit of a segment at the clinic across the street, and Dr. Highrosen was part of that as well. So it was really fun. We did it over a couple of days. There were great people who were working on the show. One of them, I promise I'm not trying to boycott this podcast and talk about Survivor, but one of them had worked on Survivor previously, and so we talked about that the entire hike.
Unifying theme. It's a unifying theme.
Yeah. So Jeff Probst, if you're watching one day.
More footage for you to submit next time.
I know, right? That's what I thought.
It
was a really positive experience, and I'm really I feel like Mike, who had initially sent out the casting call, he did a great job working with all of us and coordinating everything, and he was on site for all the filming and everything too. So it was really fun.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome, and thank you so much for not only representing the Arizona College, but podiatry as a profession as a whole. This is a long grind, this medical educational process. 4 years of college, 4 years of podiatry school. You're about to embark on 3 years of residency. It's a huge commitment, but I think it's also important that people can see that you can have a little bit of a life, among all the studying and all the clinical rotations and the nomadic lifestyle of the 4th year, things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think attitude is everything with what you're going through, and there are certain avoidable mountains to climb in life, and there are certain unavoidable ones. And if you are able to, see all of the sights along the way, it just makes it so much more fun. So
Absolutely.
I love that, Mark. You can look at things as obstacles or opportunities. It's your choice, right? How am I going to get over this thing?
Yep.
Joe, let's do some rapid fire.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, I'll go first. Mark, you've got an opportunity to go anywhere in the world for a week. Where are you going?
I've always wanted to see the pyramids in Egypt.
Oh, very good. Why is that?
That'd be awesome.
Why is that?
Outstanding.
The whole history of how they were built and all of the archaeology and just like the fact that they're still preserved after so long, it's fascinating to me.
Are you claustrophobic at all?
We'll find out.
'Cause you can climb through a tunnel and go inside
really?
of one of them, but
Oh
it's
my
like,
God.
I think it's a fairly narrow tunnel. So, all right. So mine is, what's the weirdest food you've ever eaten? If you auditioned for Survivor, you were ready for some survivorship. What's the strangest food you've ever eaten?
Strangest. Oh, that is a tough question. I wish I could say something like insane, but I think before moving away from Wisconsin, I would have said like sushi was the strangest food I'd ever eaten, just because I had never had it until I came to Arizona. That's where I'll go with the question. I mean, my palate expanded so much when I moved because I just, growing up in small town Wisconsin, had not really had access to a lot of different cultural foods, and so sushi and pho and Indian food cuisine have been things that I've really enjoyed. So
Yeah.
they're not really weird foods, but I can't think of any right now.
When you've never had it though, the idea of eating raw fish is weird. So I can go with that. I can follow. And then you can I don't know how into the sushi scene you got, but if you start going into eel and urchin, I mean, it gets pretty weird. So I can follow that. Octopus and
A little side note here. So I grew up in Wisconsin also, and I went to podiatry school in San Francisco, and our first apartment was across from Japantown. So my wife hadn't moved there yet, and I had gotten the apartment squared away, and I wandered over to Japantown and went into a sushi bar that had a river and a boats were going around the river with different types of sushi. And Mark, same thing. I was like, what's going on here? It was awesome. I've loved sushi ever since.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Next question. So Mark, what do you do? I got a hunch that what you do to relax, but anything interesting that might our viewers wouldn't have already heard about? How do you recharge your battery? How do you relax? What do you like to do?
I love trail running, and I'm really getting into that right now. And I'm actually going to do a race up in Prescott in a couple of months. And my friend and classmate Scott, who's down here in Tucson for our core rotation with me, he's also going to be doing that race, and he's actually out running right now. I think he's doing like 15 miles or something. He's doing a longer race than I am, but I give him major props.
Little side note, I did a 12-hour event in Wisconsin on Saturday this week.
Where?
It was in Kettle Moraine, South Kettle Moraine.
Oh, okay.
They had a
Nice.
6-hour, 12-hour, 20-hour relay solo. So my buddy and I that used to go up to Alaska and do adventure racing thought we'd bring it to Wisconsin this year. So we signed up for the 12-hour event, and we did 10 2.5 or so mile loops.
Oh my gosh.
It was so much. There was so much snow, Mark, and every going up all the hills is like you'd go up and you'd sink in and spin. So I'm kind of nursing my convalescing a little bit here while doing the podcast.
I bet you are. Yeah. My dad just skied the American Birkebeiner in Hayward.
Oh, no way. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that was this past weekend as well.
Oh, that's hardcore. They had enough snow?
They had enough snow. They were lucky. They thought they would have to modify the race, but they were able to do the whole thing.
Really? Interesting. The Susitna ultra marathoning event, the kind of survival race in Alaska. This was the first year in over 30 years of running the event. They didn't have enough snow, and they had to cancel the event.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So you never know. It
No.
gave me a good excuse not to have to go up there and suffer a little bit.
There you go.
All right. I love that. Trail running. All right. I'm all into that. Joe.
Oh, it's no fun.
Okay, if you could travel anywhere in the world and money is not an issue, it's just wherever you want to go, where would you go and why?
Australian coast.
Okay.
Gotta
Why?
do it. Well, I have been intrigued by learning how to surf more since after. So, as you mentioned previously, Dr. Jensen, we had the rest of January off after interviews. So I took the opportunity to go see my classmate Steven in California. And he taught me and Eli how to surf. And ever since that day, I'm like, I need to do this every day because it's so relaxing to be out on the waves and just sitting out on the waves. And then once you catch one, surreal, the word of the day yet again. But I was not very good at surfing, but I would love to go somewhere where I could take an extended trip in just a random cool place, see the Great Barrier Reef,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Oh, that'd be so fun.
Oh, I love it.
That's highly addictive. I've got friends that once they start surfing, you can't go back.
No, I've heard that. They just opened up a park in Phoenix to do it.
Oh, really?
There's a big wave pool and they have opportunities to surf.
Well, that's cool. Very cool.
I sense our next school outing, maybe. I don't know.
I was just like, that sounds like a fun thing to do. No sharks either, so that has a lot of
Hey.
appeal.
There you go. Mark, are you going to the ACFAS meeting in end of March here in Phoenix?
Yeah, I'll be at ACFAS.
All right, that's fabulous. Joe, anything else?
No, thank you so much, Mark, for your time today. We really appreciate you coming on. It was so exciting to see you on that college tour. And so just wanting to get all of the experiences that you've had throughout your 4th year. And it's just been such a treasure to get to know you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for saying that. It's been a great experience at Midwestern. No regrets. I can't believe it's almost over already. I mean, 4 years flew by. It's crazy.
And thank you
It's
so
the
much.
beginning. It's the end of the beginning.
Yeah, yes,
That's what a commencement is.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
there you go. Mark, thanks too for representing the Arizona College all over the country at all these wonderful residency programs.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun.
So, Mark, you're no stranger to drinking out of a Dean's Chat cup, but we're going to have to send you another one.
I think so.
Yep, and so be expecting that. And then also, we appreciate you joining us today. Joe and I will continue to bring on great students, great residents, great practitioners. To all of you listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we really appreciate you listening. And please give us a 5-star rating and perhaps leave us a comment or two. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. Until next week, everyone, cheers.
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 Cheers.